Welcome, trainers, to my quests on making money with Pokemon Go PvP. It is actually quite literal. Let me show you. You may have heard of the Pokemon Go Championship Series for Play Pokemon. You can earn money through participating in tournaments and getting really far, but what also counts is your placement on the leaderboards between international championships, which is 3 times a season, or for the World Championships. A top placement could get you a travel award, which could be up to $3,500, and that is what I will be working on in this video. I can get a lot of money if I keep my top 4 position for the NSC Travel Award race. So I only have the Europe International Championship to do so, as I will be commentating in Birmingham, and I have local tournaments to do. That is what I'll be doing now. I'm going to play in a local challenge, and I'm going to do this with Gallade. Before going further into this, this is not a video to persuade you to use Gallade. I'm going to make it look really good, but it is not good. I would not recommend it if you're going to play serious. Gallade may have the best offensive coverage in the current metagame. It has coverage in Psychic, in Grass, and Fighting, which covers Pokemon like Clodsire, Primeape, Diggersby, Feraligatr, Gastrodon, Azumarill, Dunsparce. All these Pokemon can take super effective damage from Gallade. But then why is Gallade not meta? That's because it has very poor bulk and a low fast attack pressure with Psycho Cut. It can run Confusion, but generally you run Psycho Cut because you want to get to those very efficient charge attacks in Leaf Blade and Close Combat as fast as you can. The core that I build with Gallade is Shadow Steelix with Thunderfang, Psychic Fangs, and Crunch. I've Crunch to cover the Ghost type Pokemon a little bit better that Gallade is weak to. On top of that, Thunderfang helps into Flying type Pokemon such as Talonflame and into Pokemon like Azumarill and Feraligatr. The Steelix makes for a perfect bait out of the fighting type Pokemon as well, because if an Annihilate or Prime comes in, I can hit it with a Psychic Fangs, which doesn't do as much damage, but will wear down the fighting type Pokemon a lot. And in that case, I can put another Pokemon on my team that is weak to fighting. In this case, is the Alolan Sandslash. It used to be Diggersby, and I kind of regret replacing it because this makes me much weaker into Feraligatr, but I wanted Alolan Sandslash to cover Superior much better. Alolan Senses also covers those ground type Pokemon better, such as Clodsire and Diggersby, because in reality it's kind of difficult to safe switch Steelix into many teams simply because Diggersby just destroys it. You have some play into Clodsire, but it is not a matchup that you really want to be in. To cover the ground types a little bit better, I have both Azumarill and Talonflame. Those Pokemon, along with the Galarian Corsola that I will be using for the first time this challenge, cover fighting type Pokemon as well. As long as I can cover ground type and fighting type Pokemon well, I can open up the Shadow Steelix. And if the Shadow Steelix looks threatening to my opponent, they may be inclined to bring Pokemon that are weak to Gallade. And in that case, I can utilize my Gallade more and more. I will be using it a lot in this challenge. These are the players attending. We have 8 competitors, and you may recognize some names there, including Totecco and Triptando that have been in my videos before, and Triptando is also a Worlds competitor, so the challenge is gonna look pretty difficult. My first opponent is Life Giving. I believe she is a TCG judge who has recently gotten into Go. My matchup here looks very good. My Alolan Sanchez beats Galarian Moltres, Clodsire Superior, and Gudra, and then my Galarian Corsola only really fears the Galarian Moltres here. So Annihilate and Galarian Moltres may be 2 Pokemon that are mandatory for her to bring, but one problem that I always have is predicting players that are relatively new to the scene because they may not realize they run ABA to a Pokemon, or they are more inclined to take that risk. If I lead my Azumarill into her Annihilate and she has Moltres in the back, or vice versa, I'm usually in a really, really good spot. I'm likely always bringing the core of Alolan Sense and Galarian Corsola, but it can get nasty if I don't have the alignment that I need. In game number 1, I get exactly the lead that I need, and I have the Galarian Corsola in the back, which is entirely free except against this Galarian Moltres. She swaps into the Azumarill. I have the Gallade, and Gallade with 2 shields wins this matchup very cleanly, as I will outpace really hard to all these Leaf Blades. Her third Pokemon is the Annihilate. She went relatively weak to an Azumarill lead, but in the back I have the Galarian Corsola, and this will clean up just really fine, as Galarian Corsola can take a Rage Fist, and then the Astonish is super effective and will add up a lot. I take game number 1. Game number 2, I expected a different lead, a different lineup, so I lead my Galarian Corsola and lead it into the Annihilate, a great lead another time. She swaps into the Azumarill, again her safe switch, but this time I don't have the Gallade, because I will lead the Galarian Corsola, I should have the Gallade in the back. It will be extremely weak into the Galarian Moltres. I just throw a Nightshade and then go into my own Azumarill. I just need to make sure that my Galarian Corsola is healthy enough to take on the Annihilate, because if the Annihilate is on my Alolan Sensors, it is probably over. In the back, she has the Galarian Moltres again, so I have my Alolan Sensors for that as I keep Switch Advantage, and that should be very much game over. I win game number 2 and win this set to advance to round number 2. My second opponent is my local Dijon. He is running Pokemon that I think he has been successful with in the Go Battle League, such as Talonflame or Pecocore, and also Shadow Pidgeot. Dunsparce has always been around on his team, and Dunsparce is actually kind of a problem for my team, because it has good play into everything that is not Gallade. So I kind of maybe need to bring Gallade here, but it doesn't really have great matchups into that Morpeko. I can lose the one-shields into the Diggersby, and Talonflame and Shadow Pidgeot are also rough matchups. You'd think Gallade would beat the Dark-type Morpeko, but it doesn't, because you lose Charge Purity and Morpeko paces equally fast. My Shadow Steelix looks relatively good here, though, because it can defeat the Morpeko, Azumarill, and Pidgeot pretty consistently. Talonflame is not a bad matchup. Dunsparce is playable. I can only win a 2-shield scenario there. A Duran will do about 40%, so I can take one, and Rollout does exactly 1 damage. It's going to be a very alignment matchup here, and really not an easy one. We have annoying core breakers on both sides. In my first game against Dijon, I get very excited about this lead. It is the Shadow Steelix into the Shadow Pidgeot. This is as good as it can be. He swaps into the Azumarill, I swap into Gallade, and as long as I have shields up, I'm very fine here. But I make an undercharge, which is a slight misplay. Because of this, I cannot farm down the Azumarill or knock it out with my Leaf Blade, and I have to throw another one before he gets to another Ice Beam that would threaten my next shield. Knowing it's Dunsparce in the back, this game is definitely not over yet. I get to a close combat on the Pidgeot. He actually shields that, and that's great for me, because that Pidgeot's not going to do a lot into my Steelix. It is Dunsparce in the back, but because I have his Pidgeots locked on my Steelix, and I have my Azumarill aligned to his Dunsparce on even shields, I should be very fine here, and I win the first battle. In game number 2, I lead my Shadow Steelix into Dunsparce. This is a winning matchup in the 2-shield scenario, because 2 Duron will not knock out. They do about 40%, and then Rollout does 1 damage because that's double resistor. But because I feel like he has good Gallade answers in the back, I want to try and bait something out. I swap into my Azumarill, he answers with the Pidgeot. Do I want to flip this? I kind of have a feeling that might be Talonflame in the back. So if I use shields, it's going to get rough. I use 1 shield, it is on a Feather Dance, unfortunately. And that kind of ruins the game for me, because if I didn't use a shield and I'm a shield up, I could have been in a really good spot here. Knowing it's likely Talonflame in the back, I farm down the Pidgeot with my Gallade and then go for a close combat, which will do about 50%. This opens up maybe an end game play. I go back in the Steelix, but the drone from the Dunsparce barely knocks out, unfortunately, and I cannot come out with enough energy into the Talonflame. So the Dunsparce gets to a drone, and this will knock out my Gallade, unfortunately. Now, this leading game number 3 is really interesting. Shadow Steelix into Talonflame. We both take Supereffective damage. However, the Incinerate from Talonflame is a better attack, and it's the same type attack bonus. Steelix wins the 1s and the 2-shoot scenario just because on pace, and because look at how low this Talonflame already is after the Thunder Fang plus a Psychic Fangs. Talonflame does win a 0-shoot scenario, but Dijon decides to keep his energy and go into the Dunsparce. I swap in my Gallade. I feel like it might be an Azumarill on the back, and in that case, I should be very fine. The close combat one-shots the Dunsparce, but I'm a little bit in a tricky spot here because he has more Peko in the back, actually, and gets the entire farm down. Steelix is even going to have trouble here. Azumarill does look in a good spot, though, because there is Talonflame in the back. I swap in my Steelix to wear down this Morpeko. This is not going to be easy. When it is in hangry mode, that Aura Wheel will take it out in 1 attack. But if it's in full belly mode, the Aura Wheel is an electric type attack, and the other attack he has is Psychic Fang. So in that case, I do wall this Morpeko. But now that Morpeko has gotten very low, my Azumarill still is in the back at full health. The Talonflame comes back in, but I can just bubble everything down. Both the Talonflame, I can take this Brave Bird as it will do less than the Aura Wheel Electric from the Morpeko, and that will give me game number 3. My final match of the Swiss rounds is going to be against Though Tactical. If I win this match, I will have 12 minimum points. I could get 15 if I can win it all. I sent him my team before the challenge, as he said he wasn't going, and then he changed his mind and he actually copied the team that I sent him, except that he replaced Gallade with Superior, a proper Pokemon. I also had Diggersby on my first draft, as I said earlier on, and he kept that. I now have the Alolan Sensors, which does look very good into his team, but I also expect him to anticipate that. Here's one oversight of mine, though. Because I replaced Diggersby with Alone and Sandslash. I have no Galarian Corsola answer, and Galarian Corsola being one of the best Pokemon in Open Great League right now is coming every single game, making Gallade and also Talonflame a little bit very iffy to use. He has Superior and Diggersby to take care of my Steelix, so that's also a tough Pokemon to bring in this match. The set versus Though starts amazing as I lead my Gallade into Diggersby. I have Talonflame Azumarill in the back, so I'm pretty good into that Pokemon. Of course, he will swap into the Galarian Corsola, and I have Azumarill to take all that damage. Now, this matchup really is a testimony on how efficient Galarian Corsola's matchup is, but also on how good the Diggersby is, because even in some of his worst matchups, it is not that bad. I swap in the Talonflame into the Diggersby right away as I'm not exactly weak to Diggersby, but he stays in. The Diggersby gets my Talonflame really low, even with resisted charge attacks. And at that point, all my Pokemon are kind of too low to take on the Talonflame. At the very end, I make a gamble. I could take the tie, but I'm going to risk that my charge attack will do 1 damage through the shield of this Talonflame and will get the knockout. And it actually does. So taking the gamble gives me the win. Game number 2, I lead my Talonflame into Diggersby greatly. Now look at this tag from Though. He does 1 quick attack, then swap into the Galarian Corsola. This makes my timing super awkward, because if I throw my attack immediately and then swap, yes, I don't use a shield, but I would also give a free 3 turns away, as his Astonish would sneak through. So I don't do that. I put up the shield on his first charge attack. A Power Gem would take me out in 1 attack, and then I go for the Brave Bird. A Brave Bird, after all these Incentive, will knock out, and he's going to put the shield on his back line. Since I have the Galarian Corsola in the back, I cannot afford to swap out of this matchup, because then my Galarian Corsola will be aligned to that Diggersby, and I don't want that. The end game is yet again a testimony to Diggersby's strength, and I hate it so much, because a bulky Pokemon with a charge stack of 30% chance to debuff is obnoxious. Because you get the Scorching Sense debuff on the first attack, my bubbles will do less immediately, and this will be decisive in the end game, as you will find that the Galarian Corsola will barely not knock out the Diggersby by a few HP. That could be the difference of 1 debuff bubble. So I lose game number 2 there. In game number 3, I lead my Azumarill into his Diggersby again. He leads Diggersby 3 times, and I went strong into it 3 times as well. I will have Galarian Corsola in the back, so I don't want it on the Diggersby, because it will resist everything very hard. And I'm not even going for Switch Advantage, because I have the Gallade as well for the Diggersby, and Gallade needs shields. So I let my Corsola get low, so he doesn't get as much farm down. I do go for alignment there, hoping that it will be the same line. If it is Azumarill in the back with 2 shields, Gallade is very fine there. But it is the Shadow Steelix. I'm going to make a very bold call here, because I think that Gallade is straight up not bulky enough to power through this matchup, and then I have to take care of almost a full Diggersby as well. I'm going straight for the close combat into the Shadow Steelix. He lets it through, calls my bluff, will almost take it out. And then in the very end game, the Azumarill is able to win against Diggersby on 1 HP this time. And I win the first set against Though. I swept the Swiss, but in challenges and cups, you sometimes have a top cut, and because we have 8 players, we have a 2-player top cut. In this case, I will have to face Though Tactical yet again, this time in a finals. It is a fresh set, so even though I have beaten him in the Swiss series, doesn't mean I'm at an advantage here. In the first game of the finals, he leads the Superior. He thought that the Superior looked really good into most of the teams that I ran, but this time I brought the Alone and Sandslash. In the back I have the Talonflame. He swaps in the Azumarill instead of Galarian Corsola, but I know that he 100% brought the Galarian Corsola. It is such a good Pokemon and is entirely free for him to bring. So I throw a Duron, swap into my own Azumarill, and then I swap into my Talonflame as soon as I knocked out the Azumarill, because Azumarill is his only real hard answer, as long as Galarian Corsola is not ahead on energy. And at that point, we go to game number 2, because Though realizes he cannot win that battle with Superior stuck on either Alone Senses or Talonflame. In game number 2, the Madman actually does the same thing. I should have known. But this time my Gallade is on it, and he actually called it well. The Superior does look quite good into my team. I have Corsola and Azumarill in the back, and this is not as good as Primeape is here usually, because then you can land a close combat and then go for a Rage Freeze. I go for the close combat here, then go for the Leaf Blade, because I'm afraid that he would catch it on the Galarian Corsola, but the Leaf Blade doesn't knock out on 1 HP. I come in with the Galarian Corsola. I get an energy advantage here. He likely has his own, and he hard swaps it in immediately, but I know it's going to be Azumarill in the back if it's the same line. If he leads Superior, he shouldn't have Diggersby in the back, so I'm not exactly worried about my Galarian Corsola's alignment there, but him with a shield up just decides this matchup, and he wins game number 2. Game number 3, I expect a Galarian Corsola lead with Diggersby in the back, and any third Pokemon can be paired with that. I do get the lead right. My Azumarill wins a 0 shield scenario here. My backline is super strong into Diggersby, but I really misjudge his energy on the Corsola here because he will get 2 Power Gem. I don't know why he went for a Nightshade first and then a Power Gem, because he was on his 3 cycle, I believe. But I go 2 shields down. He takes the energy on Azumarill. If he used a shield, my Alone Senses would have had play into the Diggersby. But again, Diggersby being such a strong Pokemon, being able to handle the Alone Senses with a shield up, and then the Azumarill has an Ice Beam stored, as I didn't catch it, which is kind of difficult against Stowe with Incinerate anyway. And he wins game number 3.
Thomas, hoe voelt het om eindelijk weer eens te winnen?
Fantastisch natuurlijk. Dit is nu al de 3e keer dat seizoen dat ik van je win. We staan nu 3-1, dus nou, dat is helemaal top.
Hoe kom je aan het team?
Kom ik aan het team? Nou, jij stuurde het team naar mij van dit ga ik gebruiken bij de local. Dus dan dacht ik, nou, vind ik een mooi team, die had ik.
Ongelooflijk. Ga je deze keer World spelen?
Nee.
Second place in the challenge with Gallade, and without a Galarian Corsola answer, I can't really complain. Does that make me the best Gallade player in the world? Does that make me the Gallade Master? There's one more trainer I have to defeat, and to prepare, I have to play the Mega Gallade Raid Day. That was it. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked it. Let me know in the comments what you think of me editing the battles this way, if you like it or not. And I'll see you in the next video.